Throughout the years and all the auto shows, we watched Mazda put on presentation after presentation discussing what they want to do in the future with this brand. There would be discussions going on for 30 to 40 minutes and you're just waiting for them to get to the point. We saw concepts, but we didn't actually get a tangible product that could actually demonstrate that Mazda is ready to go in the luxury market. Until today, with the all-new 2024 Mazda CX-90. This vehicle is built on a platform and chassis that could theoretically go up against the Volvo XC90, Genesis GV80, Acura MDX, and possibly even the BMW X5. Now, I personally think that this vehicle right here could very well be a juggernaut in the three-row crossover segment, mostly because of pricing. It has a starting cost of around $40,000 and can go as high as the low $60,000 price range. And that right there covers a wide swath of this segment, where you could cross-shop this with a Toyota Highlander or Honda Pilot, or you could even cross-shop it with the Volvo XC90 and maybe even the BMW X5. And in this video, we're going to go over everything about the all-new CX-90. Check out the exterior, the interior, take it out for a test drive, and also see why, if you are looking at buying a three-row crossover that's luxurious and upscale, but has a price point that won't break the bank, then maybe taking a look at the all-new 2024 Mazda CX-90 might be a great decision. Now, before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Ira Mazda in Westwood, Massachusetts for allowing me to do this review. The link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Mazda inventory. Also, before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you're notified every time a new video goes live on the channel. And so, without wasting any further time, let's get right in this review. For a mainstream manufacturer that has ambitions to go upmarket or completely change their identity, the transition isn't always easy. And in fact, it takes many years, and in most cases, ends up with a sub-brand, much like Genesis and Polestar. Mazda is well on their way to achieving what very few have done before, and that's to reposition the entire company and lineup to become successful in a whole new segment. The CX-90 is the first of many new products for this Japanese brand that embodies what an affordable luxury vehicle looks like in the 2020s. And while Mazda will be directly competing against well-established rivals such as Acura and Lexus, they might have just made a huge splash in the three-row crossover market that will have ripple effects for years to come. Starting off with pricing, the model we have today is the top-trimmed Turbo S Premium Plus, coming in at a base cost of just under $62,000. Not only outwardly is the CX-90 nothing like its predecessor in the CX-9, but at the core of this crossover is a platform and chassis that elevates Mazda into a whole new segment, where their goals and ambitions to go upmarket may have just come to fruition. Built on the Skyactiv multi-solution scalable architecture, the CX-90 is rear-wheel drive based, with a longitudinal engine layout, which is most commonly seen from luxury manufacturers. Compared to the CX-9, the CX-90 is marginally longer and wider, but the wheelbase difference of 7.5 inches is substantial, where its driving characteristics and handling capabilities share nothing in common with the vehicle it's replacing. Another key design aspect that's not receiving enough attention, the CX-90 has a ground clearance of 8 inches, which is 0.8 of an inch lower than the CX-9, giving this crossover a lower center of gravity and a more connected feel to the road. A full paint finish for both the fenders and wheel arches makes for a great first impression, keeping the silhouette and road presence looking classy and upscale. While maybe stating the obvious, the CX-90 wears an all-new design language from Mazda, sharing very little in common with the rest of the lineup. The chrome accents that outline the gloss black grille is a signature look for Mazda, but the way in which the front fascia has been sculpted is a leap for the brand as a whole. The subtle yet noticeable LED lights that curve inwards towards the grille is one of those aesthetic features that ties everything together. But it's really the smaller details that adds definition to the road presence, such as the functional side air curtains, smooth body lines, the inline 6 badge placed along the side, and the minimal yet noticeable usage of chrome. While not deviating too far away from their brand identity, Mazda did make the necessary changes to set the CX-90 apart and to have the appearance of a vehicle priced above $50,000. Moving over to the side profile, the Turbo S Premium Plus will be sitting on 21-inch aluminum alloy machine cut finish wheels, which alone gives the CX-90 a premium look. Some may question whether the larger tires may negatively affect ride quality, and to our surprise, Mazda's flagship crossover handled the imperfections and bumps in the road better than some domestic rivals. Enhancing your experience and taken from the Miata, the kinematic posture control does limit body roll and keeps the CX-90 flat in the corners with the composure of sports-tuned SUVs that resemble the BMW X5 and Audi Q7. You'll have body color matching side mirrors with turn signal indicators to go along with blind spot detection for added safety. Then coming around to the back, the styling cues are unique and specifically tailored for the CX-90, as its fluid C-pillars, full paint finish for the bumper, thin LED taillights, and rounded rear fascia certainly has some European qualities, but more importantly, is unlike anything we've seen from Mazda in the last 10 years. Assuming the CX-90 will be the blueprint and vehicle the rest of the lineup builds around, the transition from being mainstream to going upmarket should be rather seamless, as the new flagship makes a very bold statement and makes it clear that Mazda's intentions of competing against Acura, Lexus, and Infiniti should be taken seriously. Under the hood, the CX-90 is powered by a 3.3-liter turbocharged inline 6-cylinder engine, producing 340 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque, and is paired with an 8-speed automatic transmission. Just like most competitors within this segment, Mazda is also using a 48-volt mild hybrid system to aid in overall efficiency and performance, tasked with a similar job that's seen from the BMW X5 and Volvo XC90, where accelerations are smooth and refined for a luxurious driving experience. With an in-house developed transmission, we were apprehensive at first about its ability to truly compete against the ZF 8-speed found in European competitors and even the 10-speed in the Acura MDX. But to our surprise, the gear ratios and quick shifts makes the CX-90 seem more dynamic than it's supposed to be. And while Mazda's new flagship might be blurring the lines between markets, the CX-90 performs very much like crossovers in and around 50 to 60 grand. While the platform the CX-90 is built on is rear-wheel drive biased, all-wheel drive does come standard for better year-round versatility. For fuel economy, you're looking at right around 23 miles per gallon in the city and 28 miles per gallon on the highway. Stepping inside, you're greeted by a carefully crafted interior with a variety of higher quality materials that makes up the dashboard, center console, door panels, and seating upholstery. While we've become accustomed to plush interiors from Mazda that quite frankly exceed their price point, the CX-90 offers a completely different proposition, one that's more refined than what you'll experience with a Honda Pilot or Toyota Highlander, and at the very least on par with the Acura MDX and Volvo XC90. For the Turbo S Premium Plus, you'll have power adjustable, heated, and ventilated Napa leather seats for both the driver and passenger, with the driver's side having memory seat functionality. In front of you, there's an all-new full digital gauge cluster, with your choice of going with a minimal layout or a more traditional look. You can scroll through some information, but Mazda is keeping their technology simple and user-friendly for their first luxury crossover. In addition, you will have a head-up display with a digital speedometer to keep your eyes on the road rather than staring at screens. Then taking a look at the infotainment system, you'll have a 12.3-inch touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility to go along with onboard navigation and a 12-speaker Bose Centerpoint surround sound system. If you're hopping in from a CX-9 or CX-5, there'll be no learning curves, as this is the exact same head unit that's found in those models. For Mazda's software specifically, you will have to use the rotary dial and quick access buttons placed on the center console to navigate your way to different menus and to adjust vehicle settings. However, and first seen on the CX-50, when using Apple CarPlay, this user interface does function as a touchscreen, to make it easier to select apps and set destinations when using Waze or Google Maps. As always, you will have a rear backup camera with trajectory. But for the Turbo S Premium Plus, we have a top, side, and front-facing cameras to help you park the CX-90, while at the same time providing improved visibility when navigating your way through tight spots. Below, and in 2023 is almost unheard of in this segment, there's physical buttons for the dual-zone climate control, heated and ventilated seats, heated steering wheel, and front and rear defrosters, whereas competitors force you to use the main head unit to adjust most, if not all, of these same functions. You'll have a wireless phone charging pad with a 12-volt outlet placed to the right. Returning to the center console, there will be your drive mode selector, with each mode changing up the theme on the digital gauge cluster. You do have an off-road mode, which will likely only be used when encountering winter road conditions. For the center storage compartment, you'll have plenty of room for a smartphone or smaller items. And rounding out the front seating area, above will be a panoramic moonroof to let in a lot of natural light to the interior. As we take a look at the second row seating area, one thing I want to note here with the CX-90 is just how wide these doors open, giving you easy access to the second and third row. I noticed this with the CX-50 as well, where if you have maybe a child seat, maybe have kids coming in and out of this vehicle, or maybe the grandparents are tagging along with you on a longer drive, everyone can get in and out of this vehicle very easily. And this is one small touch that in my mind really goes a long way, especially if you are looking for a family-friendly crossover. Then for second row occupants, Mazda claims you get 39.4 inches of legroom, which is a marginal increase over the CX-9 it's replacing. However, when you compare it to the Acura MDX and Infiniti QX60, it actually outclasses both crossovers by a couple inches. And that list continues as when you compare this to a BMW X5, Volvo XC90, Genesis GV80, and others in this market, it is on par and in most cases a bit more spacious than those vehicles. It falls just below the Mercedes-Benz GLE in that regard. So that's fantastic to see, especially since Mazda has always been known to give their interiors a bit more of a cramped feel, whereas with the CX-90, it really fixes those issues that we saw with the CX-9. Now, as a passenger at the height around 5'5", I'm very comfortable back here, even with the seat adjusted most of the way back and somewhat on a recline. I have plenty of legroom. Also, shoulder room is more than adequate, especially since we do have captain chairs on this model. Now, to add on to the comfort, these seats are on rails. They can slide forwards and backwards. They can also recline as well. So if there's no one sitting behind you, you can really have the most optimal amount of comfort as possible. Also, another thing too is that you can recline them, so if you are a taller passenger, you don't need to worry about hitting your head on the headliner, even though I do think you have plenty of headroom, even with the massive panoramic moonroof. Then on the driver's side, this seat is adjusted to someone of my height, around 5'5", and this captain chair is slid a bit further up. It's also not reclined at all, and I still have a good amount of legroom. Also, I feel pretty comfortable as well. So I think people of all shapes and sizes will at least feel comfortable in the first and second rows. Also, to add on to that, we do have a center console with 2 armrests, 2 cup holders, also a center storage compartment, and there's another compartment beneath as well for a smartphone or other small gadgets. Then for the back side of the center console for the front row, we do have 2 rear air vents to go along with 2 USB-C inputs, 3-level heated and ventilated outboard seats, of course, since this model has the captain chairs. Also, we do have climate control as well. And as you can tell, you also have rear sunshades, so that way, if you have kids back here and they're on their iPads, or maybe you're just sitting back here and you don't want the sun gleaming down on you, you also have some extra privacy as well. And then finally, taking a look at the third row, you're going to have around 30 inches of legroom, which is a little bit better than the CX-9. Now, comparing this to another vehicle of this size and in this price range, it is a bit more spacious than the Acura MDX, but you're probably not going to notice that too much just because the third row in vehicles of this size are pretty cramped and there really isn't much of a difference at all. Now, one thing I can't appreciate is that my knees are not hitting the back of the second row seat in front of me, so at least I don't feel too cramped or claustrophobic. Now, of course, I didn't slide the seat all the way back, but I do think it's reasonably positioned so that way people in the second row can feel comfortable and I can feel comfortable as well. Now, while these seats are bolted to the floors, you will be sitting in more of a ball, so your knees might be hurting after a long drive. However, these seats are very well cushioned, so it does take some of the discomfort away. But like I feel for most vehicles in this market, they're not real traditional three-row vehicles where in a pinch you can have smaller kids back here, especially if you have smaller kids in the second row. I think everyone should be comfortable, but average size adults might feel the squeeze for sure. But outside of that though, I think all around the upholstery is very comfortable and very supportive, and this is exactly what you want to see for a vehicle that's trying to be luxurious and upscale. Also back here on both sides of the third row, you will have two cup holders and also a USB-C input. So if you have an iPad or an iPhone, you can plug that in and the fun will never end when you are on those longer road trips. Now coming around to the back, you're going to receive a power liftgate. And inside, behind the third row seats, you're looking at somewhere between 15 to 16 cubic feet of room, depending on the trim and seating arrangements you choose for your CX-90. Now, this is not class leading in this market, but I had plenty of room for all my camera gear today. So that's 2 bags of camera gear, a gimbal box, and a tripod. This is usable space if you are grocery shopping and you have your family tagging along with you on those errands. But also, if you are going on a road trip, maybe it's just you and a significant other, you can definitely have your travel cases back here for sure. On top of that, beneath the floor mat for the third row seating area, you will have some additional storage compartments for some smaller items, maybe some tech gadgets like a couple smartphones, iPads, or maybe even a smaller laptop. And you also have your equipment if you do encounter a flat on your road trips or travels. But then with the second row seats full, you're looking at right on 40 cubic feet of room, falling right in line with a lot of three-row crossovers of this size and in this price range. If you are just using the CX-90 as a two-row vehicle, you have plenty of space since the third row seats fold flat. So maybe if you're skiing and snowboarding, maybe you're going camping or doing some other outdoor adventure, you can leave all your items back here for sure. And then finally, with the second row seats folded, you can have an overall cargo capacity of just over 75 cubic feet of room, which is pretty good for a vehicle in this market. Also, of course, it's the most practical option in the Mazda lineup for 2023. So if you are living more of a family-oriented lifestyle, or you just want some better interior space so that you can move boxes around or other types of items, you can definitely do that with the CX-90, and it's certainly better than the CX-9 it's replacing. And also not equipped on this model today, I do see the indentation for your rear cargo cover, which will keep all your valuable items out of sight. So if you are like me and you have camera gear or anything else of value, you can leave them back here and have that peace of mind knowing that no one will be able to peek in and steal what you have. And once you're done, just press the button and the liftgate will close automatically. So we're now behind the wheel of the 2024 Mazda CX-90 Turbo S Premium Plus. Let's see how this vehicle performs, how it handles, how it drives, how it compares to other three-row crossovers in this market. More specifically, also where it fits in, because its price point goes from around $40,000 to $62,000, and that covers a wide swath of the three-row crossover segment in general, where you could cross-shop this with a Honda Pilot or maybe even an Acura MDX. So we're going to take it on these little back roads and see how it performs, because when it comes to handling, I'm interested in seeing if the Mazda CX-90 leans more towards being a luxury vehicle, or is it really sporty with that inline six. So with the kinematic posture control and this chassis being rear-wheel drive biased, there's a lot of rigidity here. It handles the corners very well. Very agile and sporty. Now, this is not really a sports tuned suspension, but still a lot of confidence. It does feel very planted, and body roll is kept to a reasonable minimum. This is a stark difference from the Mazda CX-9 I had featured a couple of years ago. Nice firm handling, weighted steering, and there is some feedback. For a crossover in this price range, you're probably looking at a Volvo XC90, Acura MDX, Infiniti QX60, and this is certainly more enjoyable and engaging to drive than the Volvo XC90. I think it's sportier than the Genesis GV80, and this is similar to the Acura MDX. And what's really impressive here is that it's handling this well, and when you go over the bumps and imperfections, you don't really feel them. It's a nicely tuned suspension on the brakes, nice and strong. This feels very well refined, a very well refined chassis. Now, one thing I want to point out here, since we are at a red light, is the interior. What is one thing you do not notice about the dashboard design? I'll give you a few seconds. There's no gloss black interior at all. There's none of that cheap plastic material. It's very classy, very upscale. This does have a similar styling to the Volvo XC90 and Genesis GV80, but at a price point that I think is better than those two crossovers. I also have the full digital gauge cluster, and even though the infotainment system is not a touchscreen unless you use Apple CarPlay, it's right within the line of sight, and of course you have the rotary dial and quick access buttons to use it, so that way you're not reaching for that screen. Now, with the 8-speed automatic, this is an in-house design, so it's not a ZF 8-speed or a dual clutch from competitors like we see with maybe the Audi SQ7 or BMW X5. But in sport mode, I like the crisp gear shifts. It holds the revs and holds the gears very nicely. And at least on these winding back roads and these twists and corners, I feel in place, even though the seats are not aggressively bolstered. And for a vehicle that is being marketed as luxury first, this is really great. This is a great crossover. The rigidity of the chassis keeps the CX-90 planted on the roadways. I was not expecting this at all. Love the feedback in these corners. Brakes are nice and strong. This might be one of the most enjoyable three-row crossovers I've ever driven on this channel, and in the 3 to 4 years I've been doing these reviews. The steering is tighter than the Acura MDX. It's almost European-like. It feels very similar to what you would expect from a BMW, Audi, maybe even a Mercedes-Benz. This is so enjoyable. And for a crossover that's 400 pounds heavier than its predecessor, it feels pretty light on its feet, to the point that it feels smaller as you're driving it. It doesn't feel like a vehicle that has the length of close to 200 inches. It also doesn't feel that wide either on these winding and twisting back roads. And this right here, the way in which the CX-90 performs, is why I can't compare it to a vehicle like a Toyota Highlander or even a Honda Pilot. This directly goes up against some luxury competitors for sure. So we're gonna head back into that loop one more time. This time it's gonna be in normal mode, just to see how the CX-90 drives when you are a bit more relaxed and you're using this as the way it's designed and the way it's marketed, where this is not supposed to be a sports crossover, and yet every single ounce of this vehicle's DNA tells me that it's extremely fun to drive. It almost, to a certain degree, feels unnatural, the way in which the CX-90 performs on these back roads, because with the inline 6 and you have over 330 horsepower, obviously, you know that you're going to have enough power to get on highways safely. You're going to have the performance that will compete with vehicles specifically in this price range. But when you take a look at the chassis, the suspension, the handling characteristics, this is a completely different vehicle than what we see from other Japanese competitors in this market. And if I'm an executive from Infiniti, Lexus, Acura, I'd say maybe even Genesis and Volvo as well, I would be fuming, because what Mazda has done here is that they're offering a vehicle that undercuts all those rivals. It undercuts all of its rivals, and you have a vehicle that's extremely fun to drive, plush, upscale, luxurious, and they did so in a price point that should draw in a lot of buyers. Because even though this is around $62,000, I think this is a bargain. This is a value on the market right now. This could very well be, and I know it's early in 2023, But this could be a candidate for crossover of the year, without question, because I can't think of another vehicle in this price range, maybe outside of the Acura MDX, that performs quite like this. Not bad. Not bad at all. 0 to 60 times come in the 6-second range, and that seems to be very accurate right there. Now at highway speeds at around 60 miles an hour, the CX-90 does feel pretty secure on the roadways. And even though you do sit pretty high up in this vehicle, the way in which the CX-90 sits, you do feel as though you have a nice lower center of gravity. Now, there is some road noise entering the cabin, but that could be because we have the larger tire size on the Turbo S Premium Plus today. But honestly, this does feel like many luxury vehicles in this market. It's a nice highway cruiser too. If you are looking for a vehicle for you and your family and you go on road trips, this right here I think is probably one of the more enjoyable options out there in this market and price range. Now when it comes to overall vision with the CX-90, you have a nice panoramic view, very large front windshield here. A-pillars are relatively thin, so I don't think you'll need to be worrying about having blind spots as you approach intersections. Then your side mirrors are placed in a really, really good spot. I can see everything in my blind spots. Also, they're decently sized as well. And then looking out back, we do have the third row seats folded, but I can see everything behind me. And also, of course, too, is that a digital rear view mirror is optional. But after about 30 minutes with the CX-90, it feels at home, whether it's on the highway, on back roads, or in suburban areas. This is an all-around great vehicle, and very impressive because where we've come from, where the CX-9 was the flagship of the Mazda brand, this blows the CX-9 right out of the water. It's a completely different vehicle. The rear-wheel drive based platform does an amazing job. It really adds a lot of rigidity and premium quality to this crossover that we didn't see for its predecessor. The CX-90 just entices you to get frisky behind the wheel. And it's been a very long time since I've experienced a 3.0 crossover that's not from Bavaria, that's not from Germany, that gives me this much exhilaration. It just dares you to throw it in the corners just because of its handling capabilities. All in all, there is nothing to complain about with this vehicle. And beforehand, I was trying to figure out, points of emphasis to say that, the CX-90 maybe falls short in one area or another. And yet, I'm at a loss for words into trying to be critical. I just can't find anything. I really can't. Maybe you could say, well, the HV automatic could shift a bit smoother, but I mean, it's paired with an inline 6-cylinder engine, a mild hybrid system, and you also have a suspension that is so much more firm and tuned for enthusiastic driving that I'd say maybe 80% of the rivals out there are just not going to give you. So I don't know where you could find fault with Mazda's first vehicle on this platform in the US. Now, of course, we're going to get the CX-70 sometime soon, later this year or in early 2024. And this right here is where I think Mazda is making some huge leaps and gains in the luxury crossover market. This right here is all those years of development coming to fruition. And when Mazda was saying that they wanted to go in the luxury direction, and there were all people questioning, well, how exactly are they going to do that? Because we've already seen the interiors go more upscale and more plush, but can they actually develop and design a vehicle that, even at a price point of around $50,000 to $60,000, could it compare to a BMW? Could it compare to a Volvo or a Genesis GV80? And here we are in the first half of 2023, and I think absolutely. So to wrap up my time with the 2024 Mazda CX-90, what are my final thoughts and takeaways for Mazda's newest and most luxurious crossover? The real question is this the attainable BMW X5 or X7? That's the logical question everyone is going to want to ask because it has the inline six. It has a good amount of performance, has the 8-speed automatic transmission, and I think a suspension and chassis that could definitely give a lot of rivals in this market a run for their money. I personally wouldn't go as far to say that this is a BMW X5 rival. However, when you're comparing this to a Volvo XC90, an Acura MDX, Infiniti QX60, the all-new Lexus RX 350, and a number of other vehicles priced below $50,000, the Mazda CX-90, in my mind, is one of the best vehicles money can buy right now, without question. And like I said before, I was trying to find a way to at least find some criticism, find some faults, find some weak points, and I just can't do it. After 3 hours of spending my time and my day with this vehicle, I just can't find a weak spot right now. I think the interior is very classy, the way it's designed. The way they use different types of materials is pretty unique for this market, but it does give me more of a Volvo-like design. But also, as I said during the test drive, there's no plastic material, or there's none of that gloss black plastic materials, and that alone makes the interior look more upscale and more expensive. But when you take a look at the fact that this vehicle starts at a price point of around $40,000 and goes to $62,000, if not a little bit higher than that, this vehicle undercuts a lot of rivals, but also it's an attainable option if you are somebody who thinks, you know what, maybe the Honda Pilot, Toyota Highlander, Ford Explorer just isn't what I'm looking for. But all in all, the Mazda CX-90, at least for a first impression and first time taking a look at this vehicle, I'm really impressed, but also this is a sign of things to come for the Mazda brand. And I'm looking forward to the vehicles they have planned coming out in the future, more specifically the CX-70, because the CX-90 and most certainly the CX-70, if they give that vehicle this powertrain, these vehicles are game changers without question, and certainly set the tone for what needs to be offered right now between $40,000 and $60,000. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Also make sure to follow me on Instagram at Boston Autoblog so you can see what I'm up to and what vehicles I'll be featuring in the future. And I will see you guys next time.